All right. Hello, star seeds and magical friends, and welcome to Neurolinguistic Astrology Live. And we have a very special presentation today because we're going to be doing Synastry. And I really love Synastry because it deals with relationships. And so I'm just going to do a quick little introduction into these, I guess, this whole live stream, and then we're going to get right into the presentation. And then I'm going to be doing some, I guess, readings as Sailor Moon for, how should I call it? I'll show you just so you can see. Da-da-da. So I'm going to be reading the manga of Sailor Moon on my TikTok channel as kind of like Manga Monday, and then just before I get into doing more Birds of Prey stuff. So let me just adjust this just a bit. I think what light I'm working with right now. There you go. Okay, so let's put this to the side. That won't be till a little bit later than this. This presentation is, however, all about a synastry between June and Johnny Cash. The reason being is because they actually passed within 4 months of each other, and I've been down this path in terms of astrology of looking at, there's this wonderful conjunction, this dance in the sky between Mars and Venus, and so these relationships between masculine and feminine, both within us and how they are expressed externally, are extremely important. So I figure, why not look at some real life examples of these types of synastry interactions between the different planets and different star systems as they collide with each other. And what better way to do that than with like a synastry reading with a real life love story. And they passed within 4 months of each other, as I previously mentioned, but there's more to their love story than that, of course. But it's definitely something that, if we think of even like Ring of Fire, that song, I fell into burning ring of fire, and that was written by June for Johnny. Hold on a second, let me just make sure that. All right. I just wanted to make sure that my streaming levels are okay, because I'm getting. Okay, no, I think we're okay. I'm just gonna run with it. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. I'll do a refilming of this if this stream doesn't necessarily work out. I wanted to do this live just so that we kind of get the actual, how should I call it, the real in-person way of looking at a chart, and you'll see what I mean. We're not going to go into my usual way of doing synastry, where I'll usually go over one person's chart and then the other person's chart, and then I will do the synastry. In this case, I'm going to keep this chat very succinct. It's going to be about synastry itself, because that's also going to be an offering that I have on my, as an offering generally. So you can get that off of Sacred Soma Alchemy, or you can get that off of my personal website at the Rachel Z Project. So either way, synastry you can do with much more than just lovers and friends, right? So there's this idea that synastry, actually, why don't we just get into the presentation, because that will explain a lot about this. Okay, so each and every one of us has all 10 planets and luminaries in our charts, but their positions by sign, house, and aspect are individual to each. When we interact with others, the individual energies of our natal charts from special relationships with their individual energies, the resulting interplay is as complex and as unique as our own personalities. And so as we have a chart, as you know, if you've seen any of my previous charts about doing natal charts, you have the 10, like sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. And I'm going to go into a little bit later about how, not in this talk specifically, but Sailor Moon does a great job from an archetypal standpoint, and the different scout powers is like a great way to kind of look at the luminaries and planetary rulers in your own chart. So we each have a placement for each of the planets that exist, right? So we usually think of ourselves as our sun sign, right? Our solar sign, which is just one of many. And that sun sign may or may not be something like your signature sign, which is the first planet that would enter your chart. Also, things like your rising sign or ascendant sign are going to be things that position your chart in such a way that your housing system is going to dictate where certain planets and certain signs line up. And so that's going to just all be unique to you, all like just yours. And so you take that and then you interplay that with another chart, and then you get whole new aspects that can exist and angles that exist between those different planets and those different aspects that are unique to all the different people, right? So, for example, I'll give my mom as an example, because in love readings, like for me and my husband, for example, I'm a Taurus and he's a Libra, and both of those signs are ruled by Venus. So that in and of itself, we get along on a lot of things, but they are different expressions of Venus as well. So in those things, there can be challenges. You can also look at different elements that exist between different people. Like, for example, if you don't have a lot of water in your chart, you may seek out water individuals. And just to remind you, like, water signs are Pisces, Scorpio, and oh my gosh, and Cancer, of course. So all of those water signs, like, if you have planets that sit in any of those signs, even though you may be a Capricorn, which is an earth sign, if you have a whole bunch of planets that sit in Pisces, for example, you're going to find that you're a little bit more watery in nature. And so all of those things are to consider in yourself, and then yourself as you interact or interplay, and as we have that lovely relationship with other people. I look at it why sometimes, when you first meet somebody, it's like, wow, I feel like I've known this person forever, or you can easily talk about things, or conversation flows easily. And then other people, they just immediately rub you the wrong way. And it sounds funny, but sometimes it's just like a matter of like certain things cosmologically don't line up. And some people are meant to be in our lives for a certain time to fulfill a certain purpose in our life story. And then we have to learn to move on from that point, take the lessons and go from that. And some people come at very inconvenient times, but it was always meant to be. And that's kind of like June and Johnny Cash, which is going to be what this Synastry talk is going to be all about, as a way to illustrate what Synastry reading is all about and why you should get one done with your partner. I find that I've learned a lot about myself and other relationships, especially my husband, in terms of learning about how we each communicate, how we each perhaps deal with certain stresses in life, and learning to try to how to have some forgiveness when it comes to some things, right? That can be important. All right, so here's the Synastry reading. It's I want to see if I can make it bigger, or I'll just call this out. And then I have a little bit of an article about June and Johnny Cash and their love story, just because I want to bring some highlight to it. They passed in 2003. It's been over 20 years now. It's kind of crazy. Like, time just drives me, like, it's so trippy to me how fast everything just kind of goes these days. Or it was just a coil or like a side effect of getting older, a little older maybe. Okay, so Johnny Cash was born February 26th, 1932. And then June Carter Cash was born June 23rd. Oh my gosh, this is very small here. Hold on, let me just make a second. June 23rd, 1929. All right, so there's already been Synastry readings of this lovely couple already online. I'm just going to use something that I typically use Astro as a calculator. So if you're looking up your birth chart, you can check out Astro I'm updating my site to reflect the fact that I use that calculator for more in-depth readings. Doesn't mean that I won't still keep the calculator that I typically use for my chart reading of the everlasting now, because that's a little bit more beginner friendly, I would say, when it comes to looking at your natal or your birth chart, just because you get a lot more things going on. Like, look at just how much more complicated this is comparatively. So I'm going to put myself off to the side, maybe here, and I'm going to make this maybe a bit bigger for now, just to help with things for this portion of the conversation. All right. Okay, so Johnny Cash is the blue, so the internal circle, and June is on the outer circle. Let me just make this so you can see the whole picture. I like to look at this as like, oh my gosh, what was I telling Kevin before I jumped on this about each of our natal charts being like a wheel of some sort, a map, a blueprint. It's got like intel in it. I've been doing, I still am doing comic book readings on TikTok, and really a lot of it comes down to realizing what storylines you're playing out in this particular lifetime and what karmas were playing out and all of that kind of fun stuff. So, but what does that actually mean? This is why we're doing this talk, because it's a way of expressing what that actually does mean practically. So Johnny Cash is on the internal circle and June Cash is on the outer circle. Now, Johnny Cash has a lot of stuff in Pisces. We are in Pisces season, and his birthday would have just passed. It was, so February 26th. I did a Superman birthday, so 29th, because it's a leap year, a leap day. It was leap day. We are now in March, though, but we are still in Pisces season, but we're winding down the whole astrological year. And so Pisces is associated a lot, of course, with the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of beginnings and endings, creation and destruction. Also, more structurally, it deals with things like hospitals and prisons and things like that. And, I remember the movie of Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and, oh my gosh, why is her name Legally Blonde Girl escaping me right now? Anyways, I used to not like her, but I ended up actually really liking her a lot. And she's really good in that movie. But he does performances in a prison, as well as addictions are related to the 12th house in Pisces, and it's a lot has to do with, I look at it from a perspective just as someone who has some aspects with Neptune, where Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and that's very much Poseidon, the dream world, and the unseen, the subconscious, the part where it's a little bit invisible and unseen, and like what you don't necessarily see underneath the surface. And so it can be, they were like, if you look at June and Johnny Cash here, she's like his guiding light in the deep sea water of Pisces, because, of course he's a musician and he pulls in a lot of that emotion and a lot of that depth from that part of the human psyche and soul, but that doesn't come without a cost. And I look at that as like someone who is writing a book right now, and it's science fiction fantasy. It's a lot of fun, right? But there's a lot that goes into creative processes, and there's a lot of like self-talk, and when you're like dealing with things that are not quite so concrete, it's easy to lose who you really are, especially since here he's also got Mars in Pisces. And they always say, I think Marilyn Monroe also had this as well, Mars in Pisces. And it's like, oh, this is Mars is not, you know, if you think about different planets, this is not for this talk, but this is maybe for a different future talk. But when you look at different planets, you will say that they are exalted in different signs. An example is you'd have Venus would be exalted in Pisces, and it doesn't look like that's happening here. Let me see, actually, where is Pisces for I'm just trying to look at this, because if you're looking at it as a synastry chart, I'm just looking at June's chart right now. So June's a Cancer, and I'm just trying to see where her ascendant is based on this chart. Because right now, I believe that this is lined up to what Johnny's chart is, and then like her chart's just over top of it on the outside, but I don't know where the actual ascendant line is. That's okay. That's okay. That's still, I forgot that Mercury is here as well for Johnny Cash as well. So there's a lot of Pisces energy going on here, a lot of water energy. And remember, I was talking about different elemental breakdowns. Let's look at June right now, because June is a force in her own right. I was looking at some clips of Ring of Fire and Jackson and how they performed together, and they were already forces on their own, but then coming together and then being together for the rest of their lives. It's just, you know, I love it. But so let's look at June. So she's got like, the sun is in Cancer. There's also Pluto is in Cancer. I hope that that's the right glyph for Pluto. That is definitely, yes, it is. I've gotten used to it. Sometimes Pluto looks like a P if you look at it in some of these charts. You also have Mars in Leo. I think that, so that's a bit more of a better placement for Mars if you want to compare the two, where in Johnny's chart it's almost like you have this fiery Mars in your chart represents action and drive and movement forward. And so having it in Pisces, they say it's inactive, right? So that's where okay. We'll leave that there for now. The rest of this is basically around the fact that between the two of them, there is a karmic connection between the two. And I do want to do a bit more of a deep dive, but I do have to pull, I just have to check on my brownies in like 2 minutes. So I'm going to leave this on for 2 minutes, and then we'll take a little break and then I'll finish off with the story, right? The love story that I pulled from one of the articles about June and Johnny Cash, and just some details about what they've left us in terms of music, because music means a lot to the way the universe works, the way reality works, that kind of thing. So if you want to look at things like your personal planet, so the moon here, Johnny's moon is in Scorpio, and having June having her south node there with the moon, so like that's south node deals a lot with karma and past lives. And so she talks about Ring of Fire from a perspective of when she saw Johnny, it was just like, I fell into a burning ring of fire. It was like this karmic connection in Scorpio, this house of the unseen. And typically, if you have activity around the South Node, that means something that's pulling towards a karma from a past life. And karma doesn't have to be bad. People always associate it's like bad karma. I don't believe in karma, but it's just the outcome of decisions that have been made previously in the past. And then we have to think of like time as well. We only experience this 3D world in terms of like temporal time, but yeah, this is kind of cool, like looking at this now, which is why I like the fact that we're doing this live, right? So actually I'm going to get the brownies out. Actually, side note, if you're interested in any of our Sacred Soma Alchemy offerings, you can check that out at the website. I will drop that in the description notes, but I will be right back. Just 2 shakes. All right, I'm back. They are done. The brownies are done and delicious. So I will be having those to get ready for the next thing. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, I was talking about South Node stuff. So if we look at Johnny's South Node, over here, it's in Virgo, which there's actually still some stuff in terms of not exactly. South Node being in Virgo, though, is that... I wonder how I would read this. I feel like having the North Node in Pisces, but see how like the North Node's right on the rising sign, so like his outward appearance is going to be very much like he's come into this world to fulfill a destiny, to fulfill a purpose. And I feel like that is definitely the case. And having the South Node be in Virgo would mean that he has already come from a place of, I guess, synthesis and being a bit more practical about things. Less of like, oh, I'm going to become a rock star. More of a dreamer, right? Because Pisces is like the world of dreams, and this idea of honoring something that's much bigger than yourself. And this is why I even said, like, that's why Superman's also a Pisces, where like often Master Chief is a Pisces, Johnny Cash is a Pisces. You're like, how does that work? I'm like, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Pisces as well, just because of some placements in my chart. And as I said, a lot of stuff having to do with Neptune. Other things to look at in Synastry are, of course, Venus. And our good friend Venus dictates things like how we love, how we want to be loved, and also just how her aspects with other planets give us kind of clues into the types of relationships that will bring us the types of stories or things that we need to learn about ourselves in this lifetime. So let's look at Johnny's Venus is in Aries, and it looks like there's Uranus there too. Yeah. And Black Moon Lilith, which is a spicy character because that's like the dark side of the moon, and also is about like where we may have experienced shame in our past, and I like to look at it like, you know, the more taboo sides of ourselves that we need to gain power from and work on, and not just, you know, the more you don't look at stuff like that, the bigger that monster becomes. So Johnny Cash has us in Aries. So Venus being in Aries, with that, it means that there's some he goes and gets whatever it is that he wants. I also have a Venus in Aries, and it's all about, it's that warrior energy as well, right? And very close to the dark side of human nature. He's very aware of that stuff and very tight with it. And I think that June accepted him for all of what he was unconditionally, and he knew that, and because of that, he gave her everything. And let's see, over here, she's got the North Node in Taurus. She's got Chiron in Taurus. Her Venus is in Taurus. And Venus is ruled by Taurus, so you could consider that as a very powerful position for her Venus to be in. So I would say, like, June Carter herself has a very powerful chart. She herself is a singer, right? So all of this stuff in Taurus makes a lot of sense. The North Node being there, that Taurus rules the throat and the vocal cords, and so there's like a lot of tie in there with Gemini, which rules communication. She's got Mercury there, right? And that's she's got a lot of planets in their sign of rulership, which ends up empowering those energies in her chart, which is cool, and I think connects very strongly with Johnny's chart. She's also born under a full moon. Her moon is in Capricorn, a very practical moon, and I feel like that moon in Capricorn grounds this entire relationship. It's like she's able to be there for him and love him unconditionally, but also be the boundaries, be the tough love, be the way for him to grow as a person and be the individual that she needs him to be, to have the love story that they have. So that's my reading of them as a whole. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to mill on too much, because I'm trying to keep my little talk succinct from this perspective, just so you get a little taste of what it is to get a reading from me. And you could also look at Synastry for people that you don't even have a love relationship with, right? As I said, like me and my mom, I'm a Taurus and she's a Scorpio, and that's just sun sign. So that's this guy right here, your sun. And those are opposites, and that's an aspect when you have opposing opposing signs that same planet is in different charts. And you can have that across all those 10 planets, right? So it's just, good to know. It doesn't look like this guy is changing. Let me see. I might have lost my connection with this. Oh no. Okay, got it. I have till death to us part. And not to be morbid at all, because I read they died within 4 months of each other, but Johnny did a performance in between that time where he spoke about how he felt June's presence with him performing, so, and offering him inspiration and courage, and how June took her role as a wife very seriously. And if being a wife was like a job, June would be a CEO. So I kind of like that. June died of complications following heart surgery on May 15th, 2003 in Nashville. And a devastated Johnny Cash died later that year on September 12th from complications associated with diabetes. So very interesting how it's kind of a shame. Sad. Well, I mean, death is always it's a hard thing to talk about. And like, when does anyone know it's like the right time to go, right? Let's go here. I'm going to now read a little bit of this article just about their love story, and then we'll wrap up this particular talk about synastry reading. And if you're interested in getting a synastry reading from me, I will have links to all of that. Hold on, I'm going to move this up. All right, let me just make sure I have. Okay, and so Johnny Cash described his love for June Carter as unconditional inside their love story. And this was the whole idea that when June met Johnny, she was like, oh my gosh, I have no right falling in love with this man, but the heart wants what it wants. And I think this is where even Dune talks about this, like, love is the most powerful force in the universe, right? And it cannot be controlled. And if you have this love, this attraction, this it's more than attraction. Attraction's part of it, but that is not something that can be just will that away. So it's kind of like what I'm doing in terms of even like the Green Lantern Corps, like how like they're the will, but there's also the Star Sapphires, and they're about love, and they talk about how like a world without love is blasphemy, but love can cause some complications. That's the thing. It's never so easily tied up in a bow. See here, Johnny and June first met backstage at Nashville's Tennessee's Grand Ole Opry in 1956. Though it would be a dozen years before they would become husband and wife, Carter had been aware of Cash through the recommendations of Elvis Presley, with whom she had been singing backup. Elvis would make me go into these little cafes and listen to John on the jukebox when we played in the South, in the Carolinas, and all down through Florida and Georgia. So that's so funny. She became aware of Johnny Cash because of recommendations from Elvis Presley, because she used to sing backup for Elvis. I love that. Cash remembers telling Carter that he has always wanted to meet her and was aware of her through her famous country music family. Her parents were Ezra Carter and mother Maybelle Carter, and June. Oh, yes. So she comes from a singing family. But, so as I said, she's like a force in her own right. And to just like, it's like sparks coming together. And it was just always kind of meant to be when it was supposed to happen. And they had affairs. 1966 filed for divorce. They had, let's see here. Oh my gosh, Johnny Cash popped the question in London, Ontario. I didn't know that. In 1968. So, although neither spoke of how and when their amorous relationship began, Cash made a very public proposal to Carter after several previous attempts had reportedly failed. Carter finally said yes when Cash popped the question in front of a concert audience of 7,000 people in London, Ontario in February of 1968. Nice. And then 2 years later, Carter gave birth to a son, John Carter Cash, and the couple blended their existing families. So I love that. And very much in love. Yeah. And they died just 4 months apart. And I love this part here because I think this is a good way to kind of end this conversation and this talk until next Moonday Monday and our next synastry reading. So, yeah, I'm going to do just synastry readings, like a relationship. That's kind of like that's the best part of Astro for me anyways, really. Navigating who we're supposed to share our lives here with, right? And how we can grow with even our relationships with ourselves too, right? So Cash gave his final live performance on July 5th, 2003 at the Carter Family Fold in Hiltons, Virginia. Visibly frail, he honored his recently deceased wife between songs. The spirit of June Carter overshadows me tonight with the love she had for me and the love I had for her. We connect somewhere between here and heaven. She came down for a short visit, I guess, from heaven, to visit with me tonight, to give me courage and inspiration like she always has. I thank God for June Carter. I love her with all my heart. Aww. Love that. It's just, you love, like, and Juno in Astro is very much the wife goddess energy, and she was very much an embodiment of that. And, as I said, being a force in your own and then coming together, and in doing that, you've amplified your own power too as well. And just about also leaning into our own energies of healing our own divine masculine within ourselves and with those that we get to share our journey of life with. And so I hope that you found tonight's conversation about synastry and a look at the love story of June and Johnny Cash very interesting. And if you like my content, please give me a like, share it, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Until next time, Starseeds.